about switching your plants to semi-hydro, but just worried you'll mess it up? I totally get it. I was definitely like that at the beginning. But today I'm going to repot this Alocasia Jacklyn into PON, Lechuza PON, and you're going to come with me. We're going to do it literally the whole way through this video, so you can pause and stop and change whenever you need to, and stick with me and I'll give all the tips and tricks as we go along the way. So today I'm going to repot my beautiful little Jacklyn here. I'm going to take it from the sphagnum moss that she's in and I'm going to pop it into Lechuza PON. And Lechuza PON is semi-hydro, and I personally prefer that to full hydroponics for pretty much all plants. There are some that do very well in water, don't get me wrong, but I think drying your roots out and letting oxygen get to the roots is quite important for quite a lot of plants. The hardest thing really, if you're taking it out of sphagnum moss, is getting the sphagnum moss off the roots. When it lives in semi-hydro, you want the roots to be as clean as possible. So I'm going to start doing that first, and as I'm doing that, I'm going to show you all of the other tools I've got on the desk. But firstly, let's just set up the potting mat. This camera is on, so it focuses on the closest thing to the camera. And it's meant to do that because I want you to see the plant more than me. So if I go out of focus, apologies, just ignore it. That's fine. Right, so let's start straight away. I'm going to take all of the sphagnum moss off of my Alocasia Jacklyn. And as I said, it's quite the hard part. So let's just take it all off. It's very sticky on the roots. You can see the roots there are sticking out. Some beautiful ones. And we will clean this up as we go. Now, I've got to be very, very careful as I'm taking it off the roots. So I'm just going to tickle as much as possible. And one of the probably less positive things about using sphagnum moss, I think it's great for propagation, but sometimes the sphagnum moss itself looks like the roots of the plant, and you don't want to pull the roots off the plant, you just want to pull the sphagnum moss. So you just got to go slow and do it really, really carefully, which is what I'm going to do here, which is why I started with it, so because this is going to be the longest time. So what have I got here on my desk? Okay, the postie has just turned up, so I am going to have to press pause. Bear with me. Okay, I'm back. How was that for timing? It's perfect timing. Oops. So, what tools have I got around me? I've got a pair of scissors, because we're going to try and clean up any roots that may need chopping off. I've got a toothbrush, which will help me clean the roots. You'll see how we use that later. I've got my self-watering pots. Now, I bought these ones off of Amazon, and actually, they're dupes for a Lechuza pot. Lechuza is the brand. They're a lot cheaper than the Lechuza ones. I got 6 in a pack, and I actually think they're pretty good for the price, I must admit. So I'm going to try them. They look pretty good. And then they've all got a water measuring unit, which for me is quite important. And I've got my Lechuza PON. And what I've done with this is I have washed this. I've washed it outside. I definitely recommend you taking it outside to wash somewhere. Don't wash it in your kitchen sink, because what you're trying to do is get rid of all of the sediment on the Lechuza PON. And the sediment, if you leave it on, you can see it sitting in the water. It becomes really thick and gluggy, and you definitely don't want that down the drains. So make sure you do it outside. The sediment is actually good for grass and other dirt. It's quite a nice like volcanic rock type thing, but it's not good if it's sitting in the actual self-watering pot. And I've got enough here, obviously, to fill the self-watering pot. I've also got a watering can, and this has been filled with a solution of water and proper fertilizer or nutrient for semi-hydro. You don't just use normal fertilizer, you've got to use proper semi-hydro or hydroponic solution fertilizers. I bought quite a cheap one. I just found it on something called mydeal.com, and I had never tried it before, and I absolutely love it. And it has 3 different elements to it, and I add it all together for a nice balanced fertilizer. This is SNS 209. And it's a systemic pest control that is very, very natural. I can add it into any watering solution that I've got because it's natural and it's rosemary extract. And slowly but surely it helps fend off bugs like spider mites and thrips and all of that kind of thing. It just seeks up through the roots and sits in the plant cell walls to help it become more resistant against pests. With the sphagnum moss that I'm pulling off, it is damp. When it's dry, it can get really, really hard and really, really sticky, and you don't want that. And also, if it's too wet and damp, it becomes really cloggy, and I also want to get it as much off the roots. So too damp can stick to the roots and break it a little bit. So try and keep it really lightly damp when you're trying to take it off. With a lot of potting mixes, you can actually get overwatering, you can get muddy soil, and with with Lechuza PON or with any kind of semi-hydro, you just don't have that problem, right? You don't have an overwatering solution by having it too cloggy and too soggy. The roots very easily get through this semi-hydroponic kind of potting medium. If it goes through Leca, if it goes through Lechuza PON, the roots can easily get through. So it's quite lovely. The other thing you'll notice is if you do try Lechuza PON, you might notice a lot less pests. You don't get fungus gnats. You don't get, weird things like it just seems to attract less pests around, especially the soil. So if you don't like fungus gnats, this is a great solution for you as well. Oh no, see, that's what happens. You've got to be really careful. See how many roots have come off on that one? Yeah, that's what I didn't want. I wasn't concentrating. Oh well. Oh look, there's little corms coming up too. Got to save them. I'll get them later. So if anything doesn't go fast here, I will just try and fast forward. You can, as I said, pause the video as much as you need to do this step if it's taking you longer than it's taking me. All right, can I separate them? There's a nice thick chunky root there. Oh. Okay, so the roots aren't as bad on both. They're good. I thought that one had none. Can you see it? Hold on, let me do that this way. I thought that one had absolutely none on it, but it does on the other side. So we're safe there. And it's got some nice thick chunky ones there. And then this one here, again, it's got none on that side, but it's got lots coming out in the sphagnum moss there. So we're going to keep going. So while I do this, I'm going to cut in a little bit and I'm going to say, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. I try and share a video every week and I'm here to help you learn to become a better green thumb. A lot of people don't think they've got a green thumb, but they definitely do. It just takes a little bit of new understanding and knowledge. So if you have any questions or anything, I'm more than happy and open to hear from you. Please do shout out in the comments below. Also, don't forget there's community tabs. So I try and upload a poll or a quiz or some kind of weird question every week, at least a couple every week. So please do have a look at the poll that's there right now. So please do hop over. We are almost there with most of the sphagnum moss. I've just got a little bit sitting on the roots. So you can see that there's almost no sphagnum on the roots there. So I've got a little bit of water here. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to dip it in and see if anything else comes off, any dirt, a few little bits and pieces are coming off, just to give it a little bit of a wash, because we're now at the root stage, and see if any of the additional small tiny pieces of sphagnum moss comes off. There's a little bit of extra dirt as well. Okay, here we go, taking off all the little dead bits. So I'm going to wash again, not a lot of roots, but enough for me to transfer across. And I want the roots to grow in a new medium. So for me, it's not so bad. I probably would have liked more roots, more longer roots. Let's see how we go. Is that healthy? And the reason you can tell they're good roots is because they are solid white roots. Now that is a little bit darker. I was just rubbing my thumbnail across to see, but it's still very solid and very hard. It's just got a bit of an outer shell. So I'm happy about that. And the end is nice and white and the top is nice and white. So what might happen over time is it might die off from there, but honestly, I'm going to trial. I'm all about learning and trialing different and new things. I'm going to make sure that there's enough liquid in there to get to the main part of the roots, but not overpower it, which is the thing about semi-hydros I love the most. Okay, so we'll get rid of that, and we've done the water. Now, if you get stuck and you want to just double check some of the roots with the sphagnum moss, you can use a bit of a toothbrush because you do want it really super clean, especially the stem. So you can just try and wipe down some of the roots, because as long as you do it gently, the roots will survive. Plants are tougher than you think sometimes. And even though the roots are delicate in this case, I still want to just make sure that there's enough off as much as possible. So, okay, so here's one. There is plenty more stem than there is any kind of moss. So I'm happy with where they're sitting. I'm actually surprised how much sphagnum moss has come off, to be honest. Okay, so there we go. So I've got my two plants. Okay, so now what I just want to double check is if there was any rot here, I would chop the rot off with the pair of scissors. Again, I don't want to chop off too much. There is no rot in that little piece. I'm going to leave it just in case. It might come off, and there's no rot here that I can see. I might just chop that tiny end off, and that's fine with me. I think they're nice, beautiful, healthy roots, even though there's not a lot. Right, so how do we put it into the self-watering pot. You put it in exactly the same as any other potting mix. We're going to fill it to the bottom third with our potting medium, which in this case is clean Lechuza PON. Right, now in this case, the Lechuza PON will sit in those little pods as well, and that's good because we want the water to go in to those areas. We've got a third. I'm going to pop it in my pot, and then we're going to put the plant in. So I want the roots to go down as far as possible, and I want the stem to sit on top of, right at the edge of the Lechuza PON. Now, I'm going to fill it all up. Easy. One. There we go. There you go, right? So I'm going to tap it so it gets into all the little air bubbles, but it's still got lots of air. Nice to the top. And there you go. It's a nice, cute little... Maybe I should have had both leaves facing forward, but that's okay. They'll fix themselves. There's a couple of small ones out. I'll put the rest away. And there you go. We are now in Lechuza PON. How cute is that? Oh my gosh, it looks so cute. I love it. It's so beautiful. I feel like they're palm trees now. They look very summery to me. Right, let's double check for pests while we're here. No, this one hasn't had any, thank God. Touch wood. Touch wood. And there we have it. So the final thing to do now is to fill up the reservoir. And because I've got a self-watering pot, I'm literally going to utilize that to my advantage, and I'm going to fill it up only where it needs to be, to the maximum. I don't want to fill the whole thing. I definitely don't want the water sitting too far up. I want it to be sitting probably about a third. And if it's a little bit over that, I'm okay with that too. And then I'm literally going to put in just a couple of tiny, tiny, tiny drops. They say it's about 8 ml per gallon, which is about, in Australian terms, metric terms, 8 ml for 3.8 litres, so just under 4 litres. So I literally just am going to drop it. There we go. Tiny, tiny drop. The tiniest part I could put in. There we go. And I'm going to use that to stir it. Hey, do what you can. Here we go. Now, some self-watering pots do have a little space that you can pour the water straight into, but honestly, you don't need them because you can still pour the water on top of that potting medium, on top of the Lechuza PON. Because I want all of that Lechuza PON to be damp, and I want it to stay damp, not wet. So I'm going to let that settle slightly because I haven't seen that move yet, but it's all slowly but surely going to the bottom. Right, probably a little bit more. And there you go. So there's it's literally come up right to that spot. You can see it right there. Now one of the things I kind of like doing is just seeing if the water has hit. Now you can see if it was any higher than it should be, the water would make obviously that part damp as well. So you can double check that way as well if you need to, but in this case, it's pretty much perfectly aligned to the base of the pot. Now, if you don't technically have a self-watering pot available, you can also create your own self-watering pot as well. I've got an example here where I have used a Monstera into my type of own self-watering pot, where I've just bought an orchid pot and I've found a outer pot that is the same size, so I can still use it. And again, I just measure it by looking, when I pour the water in, how far up that water has gone into the pot. So you don't necessarily have to buy any kind of measuring unit like this, but I must admit, as I said, these were cheap and I really like them right now. If something is not working, if your plant is not looking very good, take it out and just double check. If it's still got roots, what might be happening is it's just getting rid of the older leaf. It's concentrating on growing that new root. If the whole thing is starting to get a little bit mushy, then maybe something's happened and those roots are holding too much sphagnum moss or dirt or something, and yeah, it's not doing so well. So just be careful. And it's my nice, happy little Lechuza PON palm tree. Isn't it cute? It's so adorable. I am so happy how beautiful it is an Alocasia Jacklyn. I've got a mess to clean up, but that's okay. I love alocasias in hydroponics. Have you tried hydroponics before? What type of potting medium do you like your alocasias in? Please do add it in the comments below. And for the people who are just starting out, if you have any questions, again, add them to the comments below. I want you guys to let me know who you are, how you're doing. Also, if you're still here, welcome to the end of the video club. Thank you very much for joining me. Love you guys. If you do want a few more tips and tricks on other types of propagation methods, there is an amazing video that you can watch next, and it's all about my super simple top 3 propagation methods. Have a look at this video next, and thank you very much for watching. I hope your week is full of leaves, love, and a lot of laughter, and I'll see you in the next one.